This story is called The Vicodin Lace Blunt, and it's all facts. I was now 17 years old. It was around the beginning of 2010, and I was visiting my cousin, like usual, in South Modesto. It was a deep part of the South Side to be exact. I had just got done eating some food, so I decided that I'd go for a walk and see who's outside. I then told my cousin I'm going to see if the homie is home. After that, I got up off the chair that was at the kitchen table. I then began walking towards the living room, and I then quickly headed out the front screen door. I was now walking down the old cracked concrete driveway. I then quickly exited the gate, and I was now at the road. To my left was a grass field and the Fairview Park. I was beyond paranoid since it was hot in the area, so I then looked in every direction before leaving. I was now walking down Marin Avenue, and I was walking in the street since there was no sidewalks. Around 5 minutes later, I then made a left onto U Stick. To my right was the new houses, and they had sidewalks. To my left was a house with a large yard full of dead grass. I kept on walking down U Stick, and I passed up a few streets and some creepy alleys. Around 7 minutes later, I arrived at one of my homie's houses. He was posted up outside in front of his garage, so I then told him, "What's up?" He then replied and he said to me, "Nothing much right now, just chilling." A few minutes later, he decided to tell me a story about lacing a blunt with Vicodin. He had told me that it had made him feel like he was on one and like he was actually going to have a heart attack. I was now thinking about it in my mind, and my imagination was wandering around like usually. I then thought to myself, you should have been dead a long time ago. Just try it. I then smiled, and I was now feeling afraid of my own thoughts. After that, it was pretty boring, so I then went back to my second home that was my cousin's house. A few weeks passed, and I was back at home in Houston, California, bored this one day. I needed to blaze it, so I decided I'd go to my homie's house. I then got up off my twin-sized bed in my small room. After that, I began quickly walking down the hallway, and I then made a right. I was now in the living room, so I then made a left. Then told my mom I'm going to my homie's house, then exited the front door quickly, and I kept walking at a fast pace. A minute later, I was in Ceres, California, since I lived at the Houston, California border. After that, I began walking down Hatch Road towards Ceres suburbs. The street was full of traffic like usually, and I had continued walking on the dirt path next to the canal. I then hit Eastgate, so I then made a left. A few minutes later, I made two more lefts. This neighborhood was where rich people had lived, and there was giant two-story houses in every direction. I had got to his house quickly since I was in shape. I then knocked on his giant white front door, and he had answered it in a few minutes. I then told him, "What's up? Are you down to blaze it?" He then told me yes, but it's getting late and my parents might bitch at us. After that, I told him okay, and he then told me, "Go to the garage door." He then closed the front door, so I then turned around and I began walking up the path towards the garage. After that, he opened up the garage door wide. I then made a quick left, and I quickly entered into the garage. I then asked him if I could use his phone, and he quickly replied yes. The garage was well lit, and we had always blazed trees in there. I then gave my older cousin a call, and when he answered, I had told him I needed something to blaze. He then told me, "I'll see what's up, and I'll give you a call soon." I then said to him, "Alright, for sure, just hit me up either way, even if it's all bad." Around 5 minutes later, he called back, and he said he was on the way. I was now impatiently waiting for him to arrive, and I kept looking towards Eastgate Road to see if I seen his car. Around 15 minutes later, I seen him around the corner. A minute later, he pulled up in the front of the house, so I quickly walked to the car. I then got in the ride, and we're now heading to the OG Southside Modesto. We then headed back up a few streets, and we then made a right onto Eastgate. After that, we made a left onto Hatch Road. We were passing the stoplights quickly since we had green lights. We were passing by grocery stores, fast food restaurants, and everything else on Hatch Road. Around 10 minutes later, we were now crossing the Hatch Road Bridge. We're now in the dirty Southside Modesto. and we went right past the park lawn hood. The park lawn was to my left and the OG neighborhood was a few streets up to my right. This was the opposite of the suburbs and it looked beyond ghetto. Around 2 minutes later, we made a right into the OG neighborhood. Once there, we came to a random house and I was told to chill outside since I didn't know them. It was very dark outside. I was feeling extremely paranoid like usually. I was hoping no stray bullets would hit me and that I wasn't caught slipping. It was very quiet and all that I could hear was a dog barking a few houses away. I was now staring at the dark sky thinking, damn. It was also slightly windy outside and every time a car had passed I was on edge. I was walking back and forth impatiently waiting. I was now looking at the fence and at the houses surrounding the area. I was waiting outside around 30 minutes when my cousin had finally came outside. Then told me, here's the bud brownie and I got you a fat sack of some outdoor creeper. He then handed me the brownie and it was looking very good. It was looking like it was professionally made. I then immediately began eating the brownie as we were walking towards the car. The brownie was so chocolatey I then began choking. I was now panicking. I was trying hard to swallow the brownie, but it was hard. My cousin then asked me, are you okay? And I had replied, yeah, I'm good. I was now catching my breath since I was choking pretty bad on it. I now wasn't choking and my cousin then told me, if you ever die with me, I wouldn't know what to tell your mom. He then also said to me, I'd throw your body in that canal and I would tell them you wandered off somewhere. I was now looking to my right in the direction of Hatch Road and I was now staring at the old cracked canal. I was now imagining my body laying in the old canal that was surrounded by a metal fence. I then thought to myself, I better not die around him since he is crazy. We then quickly got back into the car and eventually were now heading up Hatch Road back to Ceres, California. Around 10 minutes later, we were in Ceres and I then told my cousin to please get me a blunt. We then stopped at the nearest liquor store by Mitchell Road. He then quickly got out and he got me a Swisher since I wasn't old enough. After that, we headed back to my homies and around 5 minutes later, we arrived at his house. I then opened up my bag of trees and I then shot my cousin a fat nug that weighed around 3 grams. I then quickly exited the car and I then shut the door carefully. Before my cousin left, I said, thank you, I appreciate it. After that, I began walking up the driveway towards my friend's garage. He then told me, man, my dad is tripping. I then told him I got some fire creeper, let's blaze it up. He then told me, okay, but hurry up. And I was now in the garage. I then began breaking up the bud and I then passed him the blunt to split. After the blunt was ready, I then placed the trees up in it and I then told my homie, let's lace it with Vicodin. My homie then looked at me like I was crazy. And he then said, no. After that, I told him that my homie had tried it and he's still alive. I then also said, even though it made him feel like he was having a heart attack, he didn't die. I then handed him a Vicodin pill that I had in my pill bottle. My homie then said okay. He then quickly broke up a Vicodin I had left from my prescription. I then sprinkled a lot into the blunt. The blunt was now covered in white powder. He then rolled the blunt up nice and good. Once it was rolled, we immediately began smoking the blunt. The blunt had just got done getting sparked up from the lighter. My homie was afraid and I could tell in his facial expressions. Once it was my turn to get a hit, I hit it as many times as I could because I wanted to get high out of my mind. I inhaled and exhaled it like it was normal tree. I didn't feel any different at all or any type of weird high. The garage wasn't too smoky since not much was smoked. A minute later, my homie's dad had came outside and he then said, it's time to close up shop. The blunt had been passed around a few times and only 15% of it was smoked. I said okay bye to my homie, and I said to him, keep the blunt. He then put the blunt out and passed it to his dad. His dad then said, I'll keep it and just take out the part with Vicodin because I don't want to smoke it. I then told him okay, and I'll see you later, and I then quickly exited the garage. I then began walking home, and I was now walking on the dirt path next to the road. It was very dark outside, so I was in a hurry. I then continued up the lumpy dirt path, and eventually I was now next to the Hatch Road Canal. As I was about to take a step forward, I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my chest, and I almost fell on my back. I then made another step forward, and I couldn't move really, since my chest hurt like crazy. It was now hard for me to breathe, but I kept on walking home. I was now gasping for air, and it was a fight. I didn't want my parents to find me dead, so with all the energy I had left, I kept breathing and I continued walking home. I was now thinking all crazy and thinking, damn, why did I try it? Around 8 minutes later, I made it home. I then knocked on the front door and my mom quickly answered. She then said, who is it? And after that, I said it was me, and she quickly let me inside. I then quickly entered the small old house, and I was trying to act normal. I then made it right down the hallway, and then I left into my bedroom, and then shut my white room door that had a few pieces of paint missing on it. I was now sitting down on my bed, and I was sweating a lot. I then grabbed a towel, and I quickly went to the restroom. Once I was inside the restroom, I wet it in the sink. The restroom was right next to my room. I then went back to my room, and I was now standing with the towel around my neck. My lungs were feeling tweaked out for a while that day. Each time I inhaled air, it felt strange. I was up all night trying to stay alive, it seemed. I never did lace my trees again with Vicodin pills.